Welcome to Season 2 of the Pivot Point Podcast. This season, we are featuring candid conversations. We're interviewing industry experts and leaders about candid conversations they've had that involve gender in some way. They're going to fill us in on what happened, what prevented them from addressing it, the risks they took in that conversation, why they chose to say something, and how they handled it, and what happened next. Stay tuned for Pivotal Stories, a Positive Change. In the studio, we have Jason Beutler, who several years ago, Jason was teaching a college computer engineering class when he realized that his students were writing better code than an outsourced team he was supervising at the same time. That's how Edusource was born. With almost 20 years of professional programming experience, you might expect to find Jason engaging in expected hobbies like drinking Mountain Dew or reading fantasy fiction. You will. But you'll also find him playing competitive and sand volleyball and fanning hardcore at his Notre Dame football games. Today, Jason spends his time leading Edusource, a growing company out of Indianapolis, which hires groups of apprentices, college students that work for the company for up to 2 years during school, and speaking to educational groups and conferences. Jason has a BS in computer science from Taylor University and an MBA from the University of Notre Dame. Kendra also is with us today, and Kendra Beutler loves working with young adults. For many years of her career, that involved teaching at local universities. Now she gets to hang out with college students and young adults all the time at Edusource, a company devoted to training the next generation of young computer programmers. As the director of talent, Kendra gets to work with incoming classes of Edusource apprentices, overseeing their hiring and training for the company. Kendra is passionate about stories. She's an avid reader of fiction and also loves great in-depth feature stories about anyone. And she loves to travel. Any reason is a great reason to throw the family in the car and hit the road. Kendra has a BA in journalism from Taylor University and an MA in journalism from Ball State University. Well, welcome, Kendra and Jason.
Thank you.
It's great to be here.
Awesome. Well, I know we chatted, Kendra and I met a few months ago, and Jason, I think you initially had reached out to me via LinkedIn, and we'd connected. We had so many shared passions around diversity and equality, and you're doing some really neat things that we want to be sure to share with our listeners as fresh strategies to drive more equality, especially in the tech sector that you spend a lot of your time in. But as we do with all of our guests, we wanted to kick off with a candid conversation. We understand that you have one you could share with us.
Absolutely. So as a tech company, we struggle, as do most tech companies, I think, to find good qualified female programmers, women programmers. So that's something that we've really been emphasizing and working on the last few years. And this summer, we were able to find 2 really great women apprentices for our new incoming apprentice class. So that was 2 out of 10, so 20%, which again, that's higher than we've been able to do in the past. So we were pretty excited about that. But because we hadn't had a female programmer, we have a couple females in leadership, but we hadn't had a female programmer for several years. We decided that we wanted to make sure, as a leadership team, we wanted to make sure that everyone was thinking through exactly what that meant. And so we did something we called gender sensitivity training. And it was kind of funny, kind of fun, kind of tongue-in-cheek, but it was something where we just sat down the whole entire company and thought through, what is this going to look like? What are things we might be doing that might make someone feel uncomfortable? How can we really make sure that we're really inclusive this summer? So that's something that we did this year, specifically to try to, jump ahead of any problems we might have this summer.
That's great. So gender sensitivity training. Yeah, Jason, share your perspective on that.
I think it was received well, and I think it was something that not a lot of our people had really thought about. We have a very close, tight-knit group of young males. And so they become very friendly and familiar with one another, have a lot of inside jokes, and I don't think they really realize the impact that some of their just subtle, nonchalant behavior would have on people in general.
Well, that's great awareness, right, and recognition as you're bringing more diverse talent in. That diversity is one thing, but inclusion, feeling welcome, feeling a sense of belonging once you're there is another thing. And that's obviously going to retain and those folks want to stay or come back in this case. So I'm curious, how do you think that shaped the summer, having had that at the beginning and kind of primed the team, if you will, to know that we might want to think about the behavior and have a candid conversation about that behavior. How do you think that evolved? Did you notice any changes throughout the summer as a result of that, or kind of some of those subtleties being more awareness perhaps about them?
I think one of the ways is the inclusion is something I really concentrated on because we do have a group of really young males. I wanted to make sure there wasn't any of not inviting the women out to lunch because they felt awkward or weird about it. So we kind of just hit that head on, making sure to say, hey, for any of our new apprentices, but especially any females, our two females actually also happen to be the only students from two particular schools. So any student that is, not knowing anyone, please make sure you stop by the desk and say, hey, we're running out to lunch. Do you want to come? Just make sure you invite them to anything that you're doing to make them feel more included. And I think that really worked. That's something that I saw a lot of happening this summer. So that was really helpful.
Excellent.
We talk a lot about our core values here. And one of our core values is, we refer to it as the phalanx, and it's the military formation kind of out of Sparta, where you see the squares of people with their shields all linked together. And it's about protecting the team. And part of that is inclusion and making sure that we're acting like a team. As we break the apprentices into their smaller individual teams, it's really important that everyone is involved in the conversation and the solutioning, and the aspects that it takes to figure out how to solve a complicated problem. And so we're very team oriented, and we talk a lot about that. And so this was really an early opportunity for us to set the tone for the team and then watch them and coach them through the rest of the summer on how to implement this phalanx mentality and this phalanx value system across the team as a whole.
It became really a kind of a joking but somewhat serious rallying cry throughout the summer when someone would do something that was maybe a little inappropriate, not horribly inappropriate. We have a good group here, but something that maybe might make somebody else feel uncomfortable when someone would say, gender sensitivity training, don't forget. Again, people were kind of laughing about it, but it was obviously on their minds and they were aware of it and they were calling each other on it, which was nice too.
I love that. Subtle call outs and having a code word. So that's not this uncomfortable conversation every time. Like, remember, we talked about this and this is a time when we shouldn't do this. That just makes things feel so weird and uncomfortable. But having a code word, gender sensitivity training, I could just see that in action, especially with a young group. They can make it a little playful, understand you don't have to be perfect. We're all going to say imperfect things from time to time, but we trust each other. We work together. We have an inclusive system of values, which I love that you highlighted, Jason. And when those values come into action, we can have safe conversations about something that might be somewhat uncomfortable normally.
Absolutely.
Well, good. Yeah, it's interesting. So I hear in non, quote unquote, diverse industries like technology, like the military, several other industries that we've had guests on for the podcast this season, they speak to this talent pipeline issue. And, the instant knee-jerk response is to diversify recruiting, right? Well, we'll go to different schools or we'll make sure that we have diverse people on campus recruiting. And what I'm hearing you say is that we went beyond that, right? We did go to different schools, or we had, the women that happened to be drawn to Edusource were from different different institutions than others. But once they're here, we're going to make sure they feel like they belong, they feel included, that they're being asked to go out to lunch, that their perspectives being welcomed for problem solving, because we know diverse perspectives help. So my question is, for organizations toying with recruiting diverse talent to increase diversity, what suggestions, what learnings would you offer to them?
One thing that we've done it doesn't really speak to gender diversity yet, but I think it will at some point. We have a lot of our employees are alumni from the same school or from several key schools, I guess. And so one thing, when we were recruiting our student apprentice classes every year, we wanted to make sure that we weren't biased towards those certain schools. So we do group interviews for our apprentices, and we started doing those in what I call a blind way. All the interviewers don't know which school any of these students are from. I keep that secret to myself. I'd like to take that even further, and I'm not sure how to do that because we feel like in-person interviews are really important. But I would love to be able to take that even further to make it blind as far as diversity goes, both gender and ethnic. And so I'm still trying to figure out how to do that. But that's one thing I think is to, remove names from resumes. That's an easy way to get through the first screening. without any bias. I think there are other things to do, but we're still figuring that out. I think we're partnering with some colleges and working with the women in technology groups there and bringing the women in and letting them see the office and doing QA sessions and that kind of thing just to get a little more interest early on.
That's great.
To add there?
I think a lot of it boils down to, and it's something I believe just in general, is on that relationship front. And I believe that relationships and people are probably our best asset in terms of our recruiting. And I know that doesn't always necessarily scale real well, but to be able to go to our student apprentices and have them act as an ambassador to their university for us has really been our best mechanism for drawing talent. And they're drawing the people they enjoy to work with, they enjoy working with, but they're also drawing the highly qualified people. I think we've gotten more of our diversity from that than from any intentional push that we've done or any advertising or marketing that we've done to any of these universities. So we feel that by building a high quality culture that is inclusive, that does value problem solving and autonomy and values the individual's contribution, that causes them to want to bring in people around them. And that is, I think, a really exciting thing for us. The downside to that is sometimes you do bring in people who are just like you, right. Because that's your natural default. But really, we have found that we've gotten more diversity from that conversation than we have from any of the marketing.
I see. So real, genuine referrals. Yeah, I love some of these ideas for companies that are pursuing diversity strategies and wanting to diversify their recruiting processes. Blind interviews, like you said, Kendra. And there's actually software programs out there that can help further that effort. Rather, removing the name from the resume is really great. Taking the university off, because you're right, Jason. We like to hire people that resemble us, and when we refer people into our organization, in fact, we tend to refer people that are like us. So if you have diverse talent, finding a way to facilitate that referral so that they bring in high quality candidates that might be a little bit like them, but are helping to further diversify the pool of candidates so that we continue to build positive momentum, that can be a really good way to chip around. And I think what you shared too is it's more genuine than just simply marketing to the to the university or sponsoring or whatever that might look like. Having a genuine presence on site with alumni tends to go a long way to building that diverse pipeline. So another question I had for you, being male and female, being married, working together, having different roles in the organization, obviously, but working in partnership a lot. What is it like? Like what things have you noticed that work in tandem? What differences do you have in your leadership styles? What might you offer to men and women working together as leaders at other organizations?
So that's a loaded question. So yeah, there's a lot of I think experience that Kendra and I have gained together. I am a big picture visionary type person. As a result, I have a very difficult time sometimes being practical and giving tangible next steps and actions. And Kendra is exceptional at doing that. So I think we make a good team from that standpoint, where I will wax poetic and get lots of people excited and motivated, and then they walk out of the room and they're like, but wait, what are we supposed to actually be doing? Kendra then puts it together and says, here's the way we're going to go, here's how we're going to make this happen, and here's how we're going to make it tangible. So our relationship works really well from that standpoint. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I was just thinking that while most part, it goes really well, we obviously have bumps in the road, as I'm sure anybody does when they're working with people. And I think there are times, one of the hardest things for us has been times when I need to complain about my coworker, and times when I just need you to be my spouse and listen to me complain and not that I'm complaining about you, right? So that's something I think that we've been working on, is trying to figure out how to wear those different hats, those different roles as honestly as we can in the everyday situation. But honestly, I think having a male and female leader of a company is really an incredible partnership. Because we do both have some natural strengths that I think play well together. I think it's worked out really well.
Yeah. I have to call it kind of a yin-yang effect. When you have diversity, even just some gender diversity in the leadership team, you start to see some of this, whether it's a visionary to more of the action guider, or the listening and the speaking taking turns on that. A lot of times what we hear from our allies and those that engage allies, men as allies, the number one attribute is listening. Like you said, sometimes you just need someone to listen. You don't need someone to solve the problem, and our allies can really help us. And having that dual leadership role, you have a sounding board kind of built in so that you can go and share with each other and help one another and bring different strengths to the table and balance each other out. And the team benefits from that. They benefit from having diverse perspectives. So along that same vein, tell us about Edusource. You've grown the company over many years. You're continuing to grow at a very fast pace. I guess tell us a bit of the backstory behind that and where you see the growth coming in the future.
So really, it's a belief that we don't take advantage of the youth that we have today. In our industry specifically, especially technology, it's going so fast and so many companies need it, and they need it right now. And they're not willing to take the long-term view always to invest in the youth and what's going to take to have a future workforce. So what they end up doing is they hire people with 5+ years of experience that can come in and solve the problem that they currently have. But as a result, they're leaving this new workforce that's coming out. They're having a hard time finding jobs, which is crazy considering the growth in technology. And so we believe that they actually can solve those problems. If a 18-year-old can fly a couple $1 million fighter jet for the military, given the right training and structure put around them, then surely we can make 18 to 22-year-olds write production high-quality software that can change the way a business works. And that was really kind of the impetus of the belief that we held coming into this. But now we need to put the right systems around them. We need to support them with the right kind of people. And we need to make sure that we have a training and mentorship and coaching model that is really effective in allowing them to grow. But yet we also need to give them some autonomy and freedom so they can be creative and that they can solve these problems in unique ways. And so holding that belief is what I think allowed us to really kind of capture a wave. As it's more than just building software. We are a software consulting company, so we build custom software for companies. But that's really not what we internally refer to us as. We're a leadership development company. We happen to produce really high quality software as our waste. But at the end of the day, we're a leadership development company, and so I don't know. That's where our growth is coming from. Is we're attracting very high quality young people, and as a result of the fact that we view this as a leadership development opportunity. And so as we continue to attract these high quality people, I think we're going to continue to see exponential growth because we're going to have solutions that I don't think our competitors are going to be able to keep up with.
That's such a great perspective. And you're right. I mean, I was just on a diversity and technology panel last week, in fact, and one of the key trends is this talent pipeline problem. And certainly it's if you look at gender pipeline, it's much worse, but just an overall, how do we get the talent that we're going to need for future jobs? And if we continue to grow at this rate, it's a very big challenge for organizations. And the unwillingness, I made the argument too, is looking beyond, the traditional coding school graduates or computer science graduates to a broader workforce. Like you said, young people, they're great at solving problems. And if we look at our business as we're here to solve problems, like you said, as we're here to be a leadership development business, but one, tends to focus on solving problems through software. When you broaden your perspective that way and have that vision for it and belief system around it, you're naturally going to attract some of those young, really talented people that they just need some investment of time and resources to kind of close that education gap. But once they're there, wow, you're really building a sustainable pipeline for the future for your talent.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Excellent. And as we wrap up today, I'd love for our listeners to be able to follow you. Where can they get the latest and greatest on Edusource, where you're going, and you both personally? How can they stay in touch?
Well, our website is Edusource or edusource.us. And Kendra, being the writer and phenomenal communicator she is, keeps that updated on a weekly basis. I have a personal Twitter account that I have. It's JR Beutler, or we spell our last name weird. It's Beutler. But JR Beutler is my Twitter handle. We also have a company Twitter handle at Edusource Indy.
Awesome. Awesome. We'll be sure to link to all of those in the show notes. And then as we wrap up today, any parting words of advice you'd want to leave our listeners who are wanting to have candid conversations, wanting to diversify their talent, anything we haven't covered that you wanted to be sure to share?
I think relationships are just the most important thing, having genuine relationships so that you can have some of those awkward conversations without it feeling forced. That's something we really focus on. Here in a small company, you can do that. But it is something we really work on, having relationships outside of work, having relationships outside of just the day-to-day meetings, etc., so that you can talk to people about things like that without making it feel weird.
Excellent. When you can see that in action, all the way from the gender sensitivity training that you did to all of the unique things you're doing to develop and believe in young talent and developing future leaders here. So thank you so much, Jason and Kendra, for being on today. I so have enjoyed your perspective, and thank you for having our candid conversation. Thank you for listening to the Pivot Point podcast and our candid conversation. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to share it with a friend or subscribe to our channel. You can also follow us at Next Pivot Point on social media, and check out our website for free, amazing resources to support your candid conversation journey. It's www.nextpivotpoint.com. Thank you.